Good morning, students. In the yesterday's lecture, we discussed about Coulomb's law. During that discussion, we had many things to be brought in. Like we spoke about permittivity, we discussed about unit of charge, and let me mention here, yesterday in that flow I had made a mistake while writing the electromagnetic unit of charge. Instead of writing 1 coulomb equal to 1/10 of EMU, instead of writing, if you see in the yesterday's lecture, we had written 3 different units, like for the charge in SI system, coulomb, in CGS system we had a start coulomb or ESU, and in magnetism particularly, when I was mentioning about unit of charge in magnetism, EMU unit, I wrote it as 1 amp coulomb equal to 1/10 of coulomb. Rather, that was a mistake. I should write it as 1 coulomb equal to 1/10 of amp coulomb. And immediately soon after lecture, I had a message from, I think, if I remember, one of the girl from P1M2 had texted me about the mistake what I had made. So which implies, which shows me that with very much concentration, each and everything which have been taught or which have been delivered during these online lectures, you are keenly and with full concentration you are listening to that. I should compliment you all. And even simultaneously you keep on writing the notes. Of course, screenshot and all those facilities are there. The only intention to tell you to write, to consolidate the things that you are learning. Writing makes you perfect. That will synchronize your understanding. So, do write while listening to the lectures, all the lectures, not only physics. Okay, anyhow. So, in the yesterday's discussion, we ended our discussion by getting introduced with the concept called equivalent distance. So what was the concept? Like 2 charges we had. Q1 and Q2. Excuse me children, 2 minutes time I will take. There are certain chatting option is on, and which is creating a nuisance for the children who are attending very seriously. Give me a minute time, I will come back.
अरे चलो पासवर्ड डालो पासवर्ड यस ओके पट्टू
So kindly excuse me for interruption. Chat option was on, and there are some nonsense students who keeps on just posting all the nonsense things like good morning, good evening. Let us not wish. Let us learn the things instead of wishing all these things, because that creates a nonsense to the children who are very serious in the listening. Okay, so mind that. Excuse me. So I was talking about how to calculate force between two charges if the whole intervening media between charges is not only the air. Rather, I have got one more media, like part of the media I have got a dielectric introduced, another dielectric I would say better. This dielectric which I have got introduced is of thickness T and dielectric constant K. I have to calculate force between these two charges. If these two charges which are separated by a distance, say this distance I have got equal to r. Had they been in air completely or vacuum, I had shown you the equation yesterday. What is that equation? Simply 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 divided by r square. Instead of that, if those two charges are completely in the medium of dielectric constant K, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 K q1 q2 by r square. But the situation is partially in the air and partially in another dielectric. In such such case, what you need to know, equivalent distance to this thickness. What is that concept? I have shown you yesterday. It is that separation between the charges in the air for which force experienced by those two charges you get same whatever they were getting when they were kept at a separation T in the given dielectric. Got my point? Then that distance, if you remember, T dash we had got calculated. How much was T dash? Root of K into T. And this T dash I refer as equivalent distance to T. Equivalent distance in the air and the plane. Okay. Now once I have got this available, what I have to do? Simple job. See here, force between those two charges now I have got 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0, right? So you mean I am going to deal those two charges as if completely they are in the air now. Important thing. I am going to deal with them like they are completely in the air. So in that case then, these are the Q1, Q2 charges. Now the separation that I have got between them, purely in the air, how much it is? I have got R minus T. Except this side together, how much is that? R minus T. And remaining is in another dielectric. So to tackle with that another dielectric, what I am going to do? I am finding equivalent distance to the dielectric distance, to that another dielectric distance, and that is T dash. I write this as a plus T dash. So this equivalent distance or equivalent separation concept helps me to deal as if the whole distance is in the air. Idu air alla. In fact, it is T here, but I am writing T dash. What do the T dash represent? Equivalent distance to this in the air, in the vacuum. So then naturally, this whole distance whatever I have in the denominator is as if in the air. So I have written only here epsilon naught. And then I go ahead, F equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 Q1 Q2 divided by R minus T. This I have got already. How much is that? Root K times of T. So if you wish, can be bit rearranged. I may write now the force between those two charges as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 Q1 Q2 divided by, this can be bit like you have got R plus KT minus T, that T can be taken common, and I write R plus root K minus 1 into T whole square. So this gives me now force between those two charges when I have got such kind of situation. I may have multiple slabs also. Like one slab is of thickness T1, dielectric constant K1. Another slab is of thickness T2, dielectric constant K2. In that case, what I have to do? Only bit careful I have to be here. R plus this R is going to be there. Whole separation. First bracket I have root of K1 minus 1 into T1 plus, I am talking about in case instead of one slab, two slabs are there of different thickness, different constant, plus in the bracket root of K2 minus 1, close the bracket into T2. So in that way you can manage very easily in case if this kind of situations I have got. So hope I am very clear. Now one more thing which I would like to mention on the record, that about while talking about this term, what did we referred it as permittivity. Then we also talk about relative permittivity or dielectric constant. Remember that dielectric constant, relative permittivity, is also referred by the name called SIC, abbreviation, specific inductive capacity of the media. It is specific inductive capacity of the media. Dielectric constant can be also referred by this name. Okay. So after having completed this, let me move ahead. I think with my speed, whatever the time you are getting is sufficient to write on the board. If needed to note down the things, you can text me on the WhatsApp regarding whether should I wait after every concept for a minute so that you can note down the things. I don't think so, because I'm going with such a pace that you could write the things whatever I am writing on the board. Okay. Going ahead, till now all the discussions were all around Coulomb's law. In Coulomb's law, what we got is the way of calculating force between two charges. Rather, I would say Coulomb's law is helping me to calculate force between two charges. When I talk about a force, it is needless to remind you that force is a vector quantity. And you all know, whenever we talk about any vector, only mentioning about its magnitude is not sufficient. We need to talk about its direction also. So let's go ahead to know about direction of Coulombic force or Coulombian force, I say. Force between two charges we call as a Coulombic force, Coulombian force, or electrostatic force, electric force. So let's go ahead to study about Coulomb's law in such a form where I will have to speak about direction of force, and that study we call as Coulomb's law in vector form. Say, again I go with my two charges. This is the charge Q1, charge Q2. These two charges are separated by distance r. Force between these two charges I am going to get with the help of Coulomb's law. If the intervening media is air or vacuum, I would write force between two charges given by this expression. And in this expression, I only have got the magnitude. I need to know direction. And but let me go ahead. If I have these two charges as a like charges, So I mean, either both of them are positive or both of them are negative. Say like charges they are. What's your understanding about nature of force between like charges? Obviously you would answer me. They'll have a repulsive force. And I need to talk about repulsive force which I am dealing here now. So generally, how does that repulsion can be visualized? Simple thing. Say, I have a charge 1 and charge 2. They are repelling each other. And even your day-to-day life, the result of repulsion, result of act of repulsion, you can visualize very easily. So I can say that charge 1 is repelled by charge 2 and vice versa. Charge 2 is been repelled by charge 1. Now to indicate repulsion. Repulsion and resulting going away. So that to represent repulsive force on a charge 1 exerted by 2, I can have a representation of the sign. Look at the arrow that I am pointing here. So I am showing like 1 is being pushed away by 2. Charge 1 I have got here is been pushed away by 2. And that is what the arrow represents there. And this force I write as F1, 2. Look at the subscript that I am following. F1, 2. What do I mean by that? Force on first charge exerted by second charge. So the subscript also I am using in a peculiar way. Force on is first letter, first subscript, on by. So this is a repulsive force experienced by charge 1 due to presence of charge 2 or because of charge 2 you can say. Then even charge 1 is not going to keep quiet. Charge 1 also knows about Newton. Charge 1 knows about Newton's third law. So when you exert force on me, I don't keep quiet. Charge 1 will say to the charge 2. So I mean that you will have a force on charge 2 also. Repulsive force on charge 2 also. And that repulsive force I will have because of presence of charge 1. And that I would like to represent. Again I can visualize charge 2 is here. And charge 2 is been repelled by 1. So that will result into pushing 2 away. Repulsion results going away. And that is how I would like to represent. So this is the force on charge 2. Force on charge 2 exerted by charge 1. Now by this time you might have already written this force. I would write this as F21. Force on second charge exerted by first. Force on second charge exerted by first. Now if I ask you to calculate force on first charge by the second, I would write, of course, this I can use just for your better understanding. I write F12 equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 Q1 Q2 divided by R square. Right, this is the magnitude what I am writing. But my intention, my need is mentioning about the direction of that force also. Mentioning direction also. And you can look here. What's the direction of F12? You can see that. Going away. This is like going away. Now whenever a situation comes where I have to talk direction of any vector, in vector algebra I have got one powerful tool which tells me about direction. I have a powerful vector which guide me, assist me to talk about direction. And I will seek help of that vector which is called unit vector. A vector of magnitude 1. And whose direction is same as to that of the direction of the vector along with it is present. So all this background you have studied in the first year syllabus. So now I will think of, may I have any vector there which will help me to represent the direction of F12. And obviously when I think in this way, quickly I will get to know that I can make use of unit vector along displacement vector. I can make use of unit vector along displacement vector. What I mean by that? Say if I go from charge 1 to charge 2, I'll say I have got a displacement R12. I'll write later on I can. This is R12. Displacement vector R12 I can write, like going from 1 to 2. Say I am going from charge 2 to 1. I'll say this as a displacement vector 2 to 1. So I can seek help of unit vectors which I have got along this displacement. Now may I know what is the direction of this displacement? R12. This is the direction. Direction of R12. This is the direction of R12. May I know the direction of R21? This is the direction of R21. Got my point? Then, once I get to know the direction of those respective displacement vectors, I need that unit vector for the displacement vector which will represent the direction of force which I am talking about. Which force I am talking about right now? F12. Look here, among these two, which is that vector which has got same direction of F12? And obviously it is here. So I can focus on this cap vector. What is that? R21 cap I say. What is that R21 cap? When you put a cap, that is a unit vector. This is the unit vector along displacement. And this vector R21, unit vector R21 has same direction to that of the force of my interest. Rather I would say in a reverse way. The force of my interest F12 has got same direction as to that of the unit vector R21. And if I get to know this without delay, quickly, I'll just multiply by this vector to the magnitude of the force. And when you multiply by unit vector, I such its magnitude doesn't change. Then what's the role of unit vector? What is the significance of unit vector? To inform about direction. So I can multiply by this unit vector R21. And this R21 gives me R21 direction, gives me the direction of force F12. And here I have got now force F12 written in the vector form. So what is the direction of F12? Same to that of R21. Cap R21. What is cap R21? Unit vector along displacement 2 to 1. 2 to 1 yani you are going from charge 2 to charge 1. In that direction you have got a force on the charge 1. That's what I write. Now I can write this in further form also. If you remember, if I ask you to write the magnitude of any unit vector, what's your understanding? Magnitude of any unit vector equal to the vector along which it is present. This is the displacement vector divided by magnitude of that displacement. Whether I am going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, magnitude of displacement is same, and that is R. So now I can replace this R21 by that equation, and I can write now vector F12 equals to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 divided by r cube r21 cap. So now I have got force F12 written in vector form. Some of you may wonder, ಇದು ಏನು ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಸರ್, ಈಗ ಮೇಲೆ R2 ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, R2 ಬರ್ದಾರ, R3 ಬರ್ದಾರ, ಕಳ ಬೇಕಾದ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರ. It's not like that. So what I did is that R21 cap I am replacing by displacement vector R21. I have a reference there, for your sake only I have written over there, and thus now I can see that vector F12 is represented in vector form. Similarly, if I ask you to do the same for the second force, you can do that very easily. Second force is force on charge 2. So force on charge 2 I can write, and that is F21. If I ask you to know the magnitude of F21, again same thing you do. 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 divided by r square. Product of magnitude of charges divided by square of distance between them. That's what I have written. But this is not the complete description of force, as you all know, because that indicates only magnitude. And our discussion is focused on writing the direction also. So I mean writing the law in a vector form. So then I'll just have a glance for F21. And when I see the direction of F21, it doesn't take much time to understand F21 has got same direction as that of unit vector along the displacement R12. So I have got displacement R12. What is that displacement R12? You can have, this is for this explanation. I can have now R12. What is R12? Displacement vector R12. It's unit vector R12 cap, you can say. Now I can make use of that R12 cap direction, because as I showed you, F21 has got same direction as that of this unit vector, and by that unit vector I can multiply to this equation whatever I have got, and it is R12 cap. Once I do that, so what is the role of that R12 cap? To speak about direction of the vector, to whose magnitude, I mean this gives me direction of F12, and now I have got vector F12 written, I mean force F21 written in the vector form. Even as like here, even I can do for this also. So I can write in that case F21 vector equals to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 q1 q2 divided by r cube into r12 displacement. So again same like what I had written there for the earlier equation, same way I can write over here also. So I have written both of the equation, I mean both the forces in a vector form. Both the forces are written in a vector form. And when I do that, one thing you might have realized, what is that? Both the forces F12 and F21, they have same magnitude. But thing which is different for them is direction. So I mean that vector F12 is the negative vector of F21, you can say. They are of equal magnitude but opposite direction. And I think this kind of situation you have come across before in Newton's third law. So what I see is that the Coulombic forces which I have here are forming pair of action and reaction forces. If you call one of them as action, naturally another is going to be reaction. Vice versa. So what I see in Coulomb's law, the force which I have got, Coulomb force which I have got, obeys Newton's third law. Or Coulombic forces can never be a single force. You can never visualize one charge is there and is experiencing force unless and until another one charge is there. I can never think of having a force. So I mean, whenever I have got one force, by default another force in that system I need to have, and that's what I am coming to the discussion. So Coulombic forces always forms a pair of action and reaction force, you can say. So this I could write in terms of repulsion, and you can look at the arrows for the repulsion to indicate repulsive force I have shown. What are how those arrows are? I have drawn along the line. Simultaneously I will bring to your notice some important features also about Coulombic force. I can list out them here. First one, what is that first one I mentioned? I can see that Coulombic force forms or follows third law, Newton's third law. I mean, forms the pair of action and reaction. Newton's third law, yani we will have there as a action and reaction. Now next thing that I can see that both of them, the two forces, I mean F12 and F21, they are acting along the line joining two forces. Along the line joining two charges. The two forces which I have got, even in the statement, how do you state? The force of attraction or force of repulsion between two charges is directly proportional to product of magnitude of those two charges, inversely proportional to square of distance between them, and that part of statement I have not continued because I wanted to come here. And what is that and? Acts along the line joining two charges. This is the line. And you can see these two forces are acting along line joining two charges. And for your information, whenever such thing happens, when the forces are acting along the line joining, such forces are called as central forces. Like if I would like to mention about some of the fundamental forces, like gravitational is a central force, electrostatic, electric is a central force. Whereas to mention here, inside the nucleus, between the nucleons, you got a strong force which held them together in a very small volume, and that force, strong force, you are called as a nuclear force. For your kind information, nuclear force is non-central force. Yani you will see that, you will visualize that force between two nucleons do not act along the line joining two charges. Like I have got about Coulomb's force, Coulombic force. So what is the nature of Coulomb's force? Even gravitational force acts along the line joining. So you can call it as a central force. Mentioning ahead along with vector form itself, few of the things about the force I wanted to highlight. I could see that force between these two charges is inversely inversely to the square of distance. And for your information, whenever any physical quantity is dependent inversely on the square of distance, we say that physical quantity obeys inverse square law. And same I find in case of Coulombic force. Same I find in case of Coulomb's force. So I can say that Coulomb's law or Coulomb's force obeys inverse square law. In addition to this, one more feature of the Coulomb's force I come to know. Do you know, in case of gravitational force, work done by the gravitational force is independent of path followed. And whenever such things happen, such condition arise, what is that? Work done by that force is independent of path followed. Such force is called as conservative force. So gravitational force is a conservative. At the other hand, say I talk about frictional force. Now to slide the objects, one object over the another with the friction, I will have to do the work. And that work done, if I go, origin and destination is same, but I can go via different paths. I can see in that case work done by or against the frictional force is dependent on path followed. So frictional force is non-conservative force. Same we find in case of Coulomb's force also. Same we find in case of Coulombic force. And what is that? We shall learn as we progress. We will find that work done by the Coulombic force or against the Coulombic force do not depend on path followed. Rather it depends on from where you are going, at what location you are going. Then in such case, I can say that Coulombic force is conservative force. Okay, so along with the discussion about Coulomb's law in vector form, I have shown this right now for like charges, for repulsive force. Let me also mention how would be Coulomb's law written in vector form if I have got unlike charges. In case of unlike charges, what is going to be the situation? Attraction between the two charges. Same code I will make you, just here and there I have to make the changes. Okay, see here. So this is my first charge Q1, this is my second charge Q2, and now I have got first charge Q1 as a plus, second charge Q2 as a minus. Now what is the nature of force between them? As I mentioned, attractive, unlike charges they are, and attraction to be represented there is to be visualized there. So what is happening then? One is being attracted by charge 2. Charge 2 is being attracted by charge 1. That attraction I have to represent in the figure. And to do so, charge 1 is being attracted by the charge 2. For repel, you pushed. Repulsion results into pushing. Attraction results into pulling. So I can say that charge 1 is attracted by charge 2. So what is this I am representing here? This is the force F12 I can say. What I have written there? Force F12. Attractive force on charge 1 exerted by charge 2. Similarly, If I ask you to represent force on charge 2, charge 2 was pushed in earlier case, pushed, repulsion, and now I have to say charge 2 is pulled, attraction. So I can show that charge 2 is pulled. Look at the arrows, and this I write as F21. What I have got? F21, force on second charge by the first charge. As such, about magnitude, I need not too much to worry. This is the equation which will give me the magnitude. Now I want to represent direction of F12. Look here, direction of F12. If you remember, I had a unit vectors represented before. Like this is the displacement R12, I can say. This is the displacement R21, I can say. And now I need to represent direction of this force via the unit vector. And which is that unit vector? I am taking assistance from unit vector along displacement. So I can see that F12 has got same direction to that of the unit vector R12. Got my point? So direction of F12 is same to that of this unit vector. So what I do then? I will just multiply by that unit vector to know the magnitude of the vector, to know the direction of vector F12. So I can write this R12. See the difference in earlier case and now. While representing repulsion, I had R21 here to represent this. Whereas while representing the attraction, I have got R12, I can say. Even I can make a change over here. See, this is a unit vector, so I can write this as R12. That's it. So I have got this as a attractive force between two charges. So I can roughly remember. I will just focus on these subscripts. If subscripts are same, I would say that is the attractive force which is represented. 1 2 1 2. ಈಗ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ನೋಡಬಹುದು ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ 1 more I have 2 1 1 2. It is a repulsive force. Even with that small clue you can have to understand whether it is attractive or repulsive force. So similarly, if I want to represent F21, you can see here F21 has got same direction of R21. So I have to make a change here then. This is not R12 now. I can write this as a R21. Look here, subscript 21, 21, attractive. I'll have to make change over here and I'll write this as a 21. And this is how, in case if I have to represent attractive forces while writing the Coulomb's law in vector form, I can go with this kind of method. I can go with this kind of procedure. So this is how you can write Coulomb's law in vector form. Now while going ahead, let me quickly also mention, after studying Coulomb's law, we have certain limitations to the Coulomb's law. Very few. And the first one of that is compulsorily this law is applicable when the charges are at rest. If charges are moving relatively, even charges in motion but separation is constant, you can. But rest, I mean, they do not have relative motion between them. In that case, you can only in that case you can have Coulomb's law applicable. So charges have to be at rest. Charges have to have a zero relative velocity. Only in that case Coulomb's law is applicable. And more importantly, second limitation of Coulomb's law is that it is applicable only to the point charges. Coulomb's law is applicable only in case of point charges. If the charge is continuous, you cannot make use of the Coulomb's law. Then what to do? We shall see. So as a limitation, I can mention that Coulomb's law is applicable only to the point charges. Third, to mention that Coulomb's law is not applicable for the separation less than 10 to the power 15 meter, 1 Fermi we call. At this separation roughly between charges, you get a very strong force coming into picture, like between two protons, and that strong force is called nuclear force. So in comparison with that nuclear force, you have got this Coulombic force almost zero. So you mean that for a separation less than 10 to the power minus 15 meter, less than 1 Fermi, you do not have Coulomb's law applicable there. So range of Coulombic force, you can say from 10 to the power minus 15 to infinity. For infinity, you get it as zero force, you can say. So these are the most important three limitations of Coulomb's law. One of them applicable only to the charges at rest. Second one is applicable to the point charges. Third one is for a separation less than 1 Fermi, it's not applicable. In addition to this, already I have just summarized some of the basic features of Coulombic force, Coulomb's force. What are those? Like Newton's third law is perfectly obeyed. There is action and reaction. One, if you call one is action, another is a reaction. They have got equal magnitude, opposite direction. Second one, central force. Third one, obeys inverse square law. Yani you have got F inversely to R square. And fourth one, we call it as a conservative because work done is independent of path. That is why we call it as a conservative force. So these are certain things that we need to sum up, we need to understand along with Coulomb's law. So these are the details about Coulomb's law. So let me go ahead with the next concept. Okay, so until now in the Coulomb's law we were talking about point charge, and the concept of point charge I have already told. What is that? If the dimension of the body is negligible, we call it as a charge present on such body, we call as a point charge. The question is that, is there any specific criteria to call it as a negligible dimension? Obviously no. It's a relative term. Say for example, I have got one body of say radius 10 centimeter. There is a charge on this body. There is a charge on this body. And I'm to deal with some parameter at a distance, say from center at a distance 12 centimeter at this point, at this location. See the distance that I am dealing with from this body is just 2 centimeter. From the center 12 I have mentioned, from the body 2 centimeter. Now, do I need to take the charge here as a point or not? I'll say the charge which I have got is not a point charge. At the same time, at the other hand, say I am dealing with a point P which is at a distance of 12 meter from center. 12 meter. And while dealing there at that point, some parameters, some effect of that charge, while dealing there, now I would say the charge on this body is a point charge. ಇದು ಏನು ಸರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದಾಗ ಇದು ಡೀಲ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಟೈಮಿಗೆ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತೀರಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅದ ಅಂತೀರಿ, ನಾವು ಯಾವತ್ತು ತಗೋಬೇಕು? ವಿಚ್ ಶುಡ್ ಐ ಟೇಕ್? It's a relative term, my dear students. So size of the body, whether negligible or not negligible, that is to be decided by such situations. So mind that. Even one of the child had posted a question on WhatsApp. So the answer to that is, you will have to see the situation. That negligible size criteria is relative. While dealing here, it's not a negligible. While dealing here, this is a negligible. So accordingly, you will have to take into consideration. Okay. So the next point of my discussion is how to deal with a charge which is not point charge. And the charge which is not point, we call as continuous charge. So let me go ahead with the next concept about continuous charge. The one which is not point is called continuous. While dealing with continuous charges, depending upon the dominant dimension of the body, this is a continuous distribution of charge, I would say, depending upon what kind of dimension is dominant. Accordingly, we talk about 3 types of distribution of charge. And to go with the first one is linear distribution. Linear, continuously distributed charge, I mean. It's not a point or discrete, it is continuous, you can say. Say the situation is like this. I have got a long wire of certain length, let me just mention as a L. Over this long wire, I have got a charge given. And charge on this long wire, I have got, let us say, Q. While dealing with that charge, again, my criteria of calling it as a point or not, if the size of the wire, I say, dimension of the wire is negligible, that negligible criteria just now I have spoken, I can call this, if it is not negligible, charge Q, I call as a continuous charge. I got a continuous distribution of charge here. And on what dimension I got continuous distribution? On the linear dimension over the length, I can say. Then while dealing with such situation where I have got the linear distribution of charge, we talk about how much charge do I have over the unit length of that distribution, over the unit length of that wire. And for that, I introduce a concept called a linear charge density. The word density is very much familiar to you all. Density of matter, mass divided by volume. Linear density of a row, linear mass density, Mass of the wire divided by length of wire. You called, if you remember, in wave section, while working out speed of the transverse wave on a stretched string. You have written there mass per unit length something. That is a linear mass density you can call. Mass per unit length is a linear mass density. So, in the same way, when I have got charge distributed over a long wire, I talk about a term called linear charge density. What it actually is going to give me? How much charge do I have present over the unit length of that wire? And I work out that as I represent as a lambda. Lambda is for linear charge density, and work out it as total charge over that whole wire divided by length of wire. What does this gives me? Charge present over a unit length of wire, and this I call as a linear charge density. Now if I ask you to write the unit of this, hopefully you can do that. What is the unit of linear charge density? Charge is measured in coulomb. Length is measured in meter. So the unit of linear charge density I can write as coulomb per meter. So this is all about what we call as a linear distribution. At the same time, say the situation is like this. I have got like one square plate I have. Now which is the dimension dominant? Area. And if I give the charge to this, I could see that to this surface, when I give the charge to this body, that charge has got continuously distributed over the surface of that plate. Now the charge which I have given, say charge given is Q. Can I call it as a point charge or not? That all depends on the situation. If I could see that this dimension is negligible, I call this as a point charge. Otherwise, continuous charge. Now the continuous charge is distributed over which dimension? Dominant dimension? Area. Which dimension? Over the area you can say. And such situation that I deal is called surface distribution. And I have this charge distributed over the surface of that plate. Let me mention whose area is A. Then while dealing with situation like this, where I need to know how much is charge over the unit surface of that plate, again I introduce a concept called surface charge density. And I calculate it in simple way. How do I calculate? Surface charge density sigma I write equal to the total charge which I have divided by the total surface which I have there. So what does this gives me is that charge present over the unit surface area. What I got this? Charge present on the, let's say I have this as a unit area over here. Over that unit area, how much charge is present, that I get to know from the term called surface charge density. At the same time, say I have a situation like this. Situation is I am given one, say sphere I have got. Throughout this sphere, this is a sphere what I have got. Complete solid sphere I have got. And when I gave charge to this sphere, the charge is being distributed throughout the volume of the sphere. Say I have given a charge q there. Now can I call that q as a point? Depends. If the volume is a negligible point, if not, continuous charge. And it is distributed over the volume of that body. So such a distribution I call volume distribution. Third type what I have got is volume distribution of charge. Now while dealing with volume distribution of charge, as I mentioned, the charge is Q, volume of that sphere is V. If I am interested to know how much is charge over the unit volume, in such case we call as volume charge density. So I have a term to deal a situation like this. What is that term? Volume charge density, which helps me to know how much is the volume over the, how much is the charge over the unit volume, and we calculate that as rho. Is a symbol like your rho for mass density. Even for charge volume density you can represent as a rho, equal to total charge divided by total volume of that body. What does this gives me? Volume charge density. Now earlier one I have mentioned unit for linear charge density, lambda. Can I write unit for surface charge density also? Yes, why not? Coulomb, area, meter square per meter square. Can I write the unit for volume charge density? Yes, why not? Coulomb per meter cube. So this is how, if the charge is not point, if it is continuous. That continuous charge I can have in a 3 different way distributed. And that distribution is purely I have narrated on the basis of what dominant dimension over which it is distributed. Length is dominant, linear distribution. Surface is dominant, surface distribution. Volume is dominant, volume distribution. And while dealing with those respective distributions, I have also simultaneously introduced a concept called charge density. Here I have linear charge density. Here I have got surface charge density. I have got volume charge density. Now after understanding all these things, in the next class, next lecture, first I would show you how to attempt to calculate the force between the charge which is not point. If it is a point charge, Coulomb is there to help us. And the question is how to calculate if it is continuous. So bit basic, not details of that. Bit basic I will teach you in regard with that, and followed by some typical numericals from this chapter. Remaining one you will have to practice on your own, because the limitation is that more and more number of limitations, numericals if we keep on solving, even the covering the content will become quite difficult. So some important types I will take over here, remaining all you can try, and even we have a plan to send you a sheet of numerical via WhatsApp, so that those numericals you can keep on practicing at the home. Remember, in physics, you know, all of you, with the due course of my 20-year experience, whenever I interact children, how about physics? Sir, physics problem is a big problem, they say. Am I right? Physics problem in physics is a big problem. And if you don't want that problem to be a problem, what is the solution? You need to solve a problem. So as many as possible numericals you solve, that will strengthen your understanding also. That will strengthen your concept. And in competitive examination, most of the questions are numerical in physics. So more and more numericals we shall plan how we can solve it. So let's see you all once again in the next period. Okay, goodbye.